18 is obsolete. Well, I didn't know that. The 18 hands down. I've just been running this baby for 3 years. Hey folks, Engineer 775 back with part 2 of the EG 18K-PV versus the Sol-Ark 15K. I waited a long time because I wanted to see what the comments would have been from the DIY forums, from other people making YouTube videos to counter my video, from the many comments on the first video. I wanted to see what people were saying. And boy, did they, you all jumped on me on several issues, which I want to address. Some of them were saying, the 18K is obsolete. What are you even doing with that? Go on to the FlexBoss. I didn't know that they were going to sunset that product when I did the review, or I probably wouldn't have done the review. So that inverter has gone away. Why it's going away, I have no idea. A nice hybrid inverter shouldn't have to go away so soon. So my test showed that it overheated. And a lot of you said that it was because I didn't update the firmware and I was pretty stupid. So I said, well, I guess I'm pretty stupid. So I found out from EG4 that the reason the inverter overheated was not due to firmware at all. So who's stupid? Anyhow, so there's nothing to do with firmware. And I'm not going to say who, how, or when, but you need to find out from Signature Solar why that inverter is being sunsetted and why it overheated, because they performed the same test that I did and overheated it. So there. So they've moved on to the FlexBoss. I'm slow, I guess. I'm just doing what I do, install systems, and the FlexBoss is new, the FlexBoss 21 and 18 and the GridBoss, which I'm going to review, by the way. I'm getting all of that. I'm buying all that. I'm going to install. I've ripped everything out from the first video, and I'm going to install all EG4 products and see what it does. That's going to be fun. So what I'm after here is trying to find the truth. The test that I did, some of you said it was crazy. It's not. It was a normal real world test and it failed. I ran the same test as you'll see on the 15K and it went up 5 degrees centigrade. Okay. Well within, it had no problem and ran at a higher rate on battery alone until I exhausted my battery. And both in running the same load and also I decided to sell it to the grid to have a constant load. Absolutely no issues, never shut down until I ran out of battery. That's that test. So the EMP thing, that is apples to oranges, folks. Be careful. One is rated at 150 kilovolts per meter. The other is at 50 kilovolts per meter. 50 kilovolts per meter is not an EMP hardened inverter because we're talking E1 waves, nuclear. So do a little research on nuclear EMP hardening and what it takes to mitigate an E1 wave. That's what Sol-Ark started with. That's why they're certified for 150 kilovolts per meter. And anybody that knows EMP, go look up MPAC America, go look up all these, whether it's academia, military. Just because you have a military spec, that doesn't mean squat. Okay, just so you know. What else? Oh, 15K on batteries and PV. Yes, the Sol-Ark in an off-grid installation produces 15,000 watts AC output. And I was taken to task on that one. So again, it does it all day long. As long as it's got solar and you can put, you know how much solar you can put on a 15K? 23 kilowatts on a 15K. The spec sheet is so wrong at 19.5. I don't know why they won't fix it, but 19.5 is the max usable solar by the inverter, not how much you can size and put on the inverter. So if the nomenclatures were apples to apples, the 15K should have been called a Sol-Ark 23K-PV, and then versus an 18K-PV, why, you know. So if you're just comparing numbers, make the nomenclature the same, DC or AC. So anyway, look forward to your comments on this. We're just, oh man, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time to go through this. No, I am not getting paid by Sol-Ark. I am not getting paid by EG4. I speak to both companies, and fortunately I get to speak to people that are pretty high up in the companies because I'm old and I've been doing this a long time. So anyway, enjoy the video. Look forward to your comments. Hey folks, Engineer 775. This is part 2 of the testing video between the Sol-Ark 15K and the EG4 18K-PV. A lot of people commented like, where's part 2? Where's part 2? Which was the test of the 15K. The reason for the delay, before I did the test, I wanted to get some feedback from everyone, and boy, did I get it. So there's over 330 comments on the video about what I did, what I said, why I said it. And then there's also DIY forums on Facebook and other places where there are a lot of comments. So everything from you're being misleading or what you're saying is not true to, yes, I agree with you 100%. So it's the whole spectrum of comments. So I really wanted to see. So interesting, I got like 20 comments that basically said, this is obsolete. This is from Pro EG4 people. Why aren't you testing the Flex Boss 21, which now I think they have an 18 as well, and the Grid Boss? So the comparison I made was between two comparable inverters. I don't think the Flex Boss is comparable if you have to couple the Grid Boss with it. So what I'm going to do, and that's another future video, I'm going to get rid of all of this, the batteries and everything, and put a Flex Boss 21 and a Grid Boss and two of the EG4 batteries in place here so that I can do that comparison. But right now, today, I'm testing this inverter that is already very warm. I've been dumping, I've been running it at 15 kilowatts for the last 4 hours back into the grid. So I do have grid here that I can use as a load. Still, I can net meter, so it allows me to do a test that a lot of you can't do if you're not on net metering right now. And we're going to do the same test we did on this one. We're going to run it without solar, on battery only. My two Helios batteries are 100%, and we're going to run an EV charge, which is a great, like the grid, a constant load of around 10,000 watts, plus all my HVAC in this building and some other loads, and I'll keep taking it up and run on the battery alone and see how the temperature. Remember last time I overheated this thing a couple of times, and the worst one was 131 degrees. I did find out that the cutoff temperature is supposed to be 120 degrees Celsius. It did not shut down at 120 C. So I haven't turned this thing back on since then. I don't plan on it. It's coming off the wall. I'm taking all of this stuff off the wall. I'm getting ready for what you've asked for, is a Flex Boss test, because supposedly this is obsolete, and this is what everybody has told me. I'm like, I didn't know. This inverter came out after the 15K, and now it's obsolete. Interesting. The 15Ks are still kicking along. And by the way, I am not paid for any of this. This is just for my own personal, I want to know the truth. And because I install these systems, if there's something better out there, I want that. But so far, I haven't been proved otherwise that there's a better product on the market for doing off-grid and hybrid off-grid, hybrid solar systems than the Sol-Ark product. Are they perfect? No. Do they have problems? Yes, mostly with their app. And I just want to say what EG4 has done is been very smart in that they use their inverter with their own batteries, with their own Grid Boss. And so everything is a nice package bundle. And I did find out, I got a lot of harassment over the amount of solar you can put on it. I just asked, how are you putting this much solar on this? Oh, you had to find panels that have a low VOC or VMP, like 10 to 15 volts below the typical solar panel that's out there today in the bifacial world. And so then I figured out the trick. Use the Hyperion 400 watt, which is an antiquated old solar panel, with this guy to get that kind of solar. So I figured out what was going on. Where we were newer panels, higher voltage, and so you can put less per string than you can on the 18K, but you got to find a special panel to make it work. And that's what I found based on your comments coming in. So really appreciate your comments, good, bad, ugly, I don't care. I am not paid by Sol-Ark. I've been a beta tester for them for a long time, where I'll get a new inverter, I'll run it, I'll give them feedback, but they're not paying me. They've never paid me. I've paid them a lot of money, but they don't pay me. But I am thankful that I am a distributor of their products, and so I do make some money when I sell them to customers. So that disclaimer's out there. A lot of people are getting paid for product reviews out there today, so be careful. Because I don't think they tell the world that they're getting paid by, I know they don't. They don't tell the public that they're getting paid by the manufacturers to put out these videos to sell their products. You take that for what it's worth. Is that an honest review, or are you getting what you really want? I don't know. So I'll leave that alone. Continuing, let's go. Okay, we're going to do the Sol-Ark test here, but before I test it like I did the EG18, I got this thing, it's been humming here for about 6 hours. You can see I'm dumping 12,000 watts back to the grid. And you're wondering, how is that possible? You see 10.7. I've got some micro inverters that I'm AC coupling to the machine. So I'm dumping 12 back to the grid, running a load. Batteries are at 100%. So the inverter is starting off at 51.4. It's been running it's been running constantly. It was one of the hottest days ever. Heat index 108 here in South Carolina. I think it's 97 out right now. But so good hot day, good test. Now I'm going to really beat on it. I'm going to do the same load test that I did with the 18K. I'm going to run an EV charger on battery only. And I'm going to make sure I run a comparable load and see how it does. But again, the inverter is already nice and toasty. It's been cooking, and you can see how much it's pushing for power. 12,000 plus 3,000. You've got 15.5 kW right there. Again, it's 15K inverter, so 15.5 kW going out, even though there's 10.6 of DC solar. The AC coupling part doesn't show up here. It will show up on the app. So it is 1:30. We're starting our test, running a 12.6 kW load with no solar on a 15K. It's pulling from the grid. We've got to go turn the grid off. Okay, it's torture testing time. We got 12.35, 12 point, whatever. We turn the grid off. We turn the solar off. It's only battery and Sol-Ark. Going with the same test I went with on the EG4. We're going to turn up the load. So let's turn that HVAC back on. So is this a real world test? A lot of people were saying, well, that's not quite a good test. I think it is. What if you come home from work, you got your EV, you plug it in to charge it up, there's no solar, and the grid's down, but I need to get to work tomorrow. Do I still need to charge my car? I do, and that's what we're simulating right now. It's just running an EV, which is a steady, heavy load, about 10 kilowatts. And so we find it to be a real test. I've got the car's at 60%, the 93K battery. So I've got several hours where we can run the inverter. So I'm going battery to battery. Now this could be a bit minor. It could be a load that's a constant load for hours. And that's what I'm trying to run. This is a torture test for a hybrid inverter. And that's what we're running here now. So again, we started at 52 degrees on our torture test of running without grid. You can see all the numbers. No PV allowed, no grid, just battery to inverter. And this is the worst condition that you can run these in, but it's realistic. It can happen every day if you have an EV or you're running any other constant load. I mentioned Bitcoin miners before. Just an update, because the fan kicked in a little more. We're at 56 degrees and battery only. How much can you pull out of a battery alone? Well, the 15K is pulling almost 14K out of these two Discover batteries alone. So pretty impressive. Okay, we're back on our test. You can see everything's in the yellow, grid's down, load is high. For this inverter, again, if you're going to go by the spec sheet, the maximum load on battery only is 12 kilowatts. We've been running up to 12.6, up to 12.7 on the battery, pulling almost, 13, glasses on, 13.6 from the battery. But the spec sheet says 12,000 continuous battery only. We're into this an hour and a half, and what's our temp? We're at 59.2 centigrade. At the same time, the same amount of time with the same comparable load, the EG18 hit 131 degrees centigrade. So we were so it's not even in the same planet. We're trying to run the same test, same equipment. It was an EV, an HVAC, and some lights on both. And so I don't think there's a comparison. The efficiency of a Sol-Ark, the temperature tells the story of what's going on. Where are we up to? 12.8 on the load. So it's pretty high. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the solar back on. We're at 14, 12.8. It'll hold 13 for a little while, then it'll shut down. So they only promised 12, and I've gotten 13. So I'm turning solar back on before she shuts down and give her some help. But I'm trying to do apples to apples, same amount of time, same load, and the Sol-Ark runs at its spec, no problem at 12. Now we hit a couple of spikes there, which will shut the inverter down once it goes over 13. But I have hit close to 13 on battery only. Okay, so now it's much happier with some solar, and then temperature. Let me just check in on temperature. 59.8 degrees centigrade versus meltdown mode. So doing a continuous battery dump, battery only, running 12.5 kilowatts. I'm dumping back on the grid. I'm selling battery. I turned all the loads off except for the inverter itself, which runs about 100 watts. And so I'm dumping 12.5 back on the grid, pulling 13.5 out of the batteries. Again, it's only 2 Helios, so I can't do that all day. And but just to show you, started at 9 o'clock. And we'll see how far it runs. That's what I'm running on 12.5. They say you can do 13. I know the spec sheet says 12, but the spec says 12 for 30 minutes, right? So we'll see how that goes. You know, yesterday I went an hour and a half beyond that. Okay, part of this test was to load test the inverters. And again, there's a lot of people talking about the inverters, but they're not actually putting them under a load. Some have accused me of doing an unrealistic load, which I would say otherwise. Again, I used an EV and some HVAC for the first real world load. And on this load, I am taking the 15K and I am selling the battery back to the grid. I do have net metering here, so I have the ability to send back to the grid. So I ended up just, as you can see, a 12,500 watt load. Let's see, how long did I run it for? I ran it till I ran out of battery. So it was a constant load. You can see the voltage drops. I pulled some parameters on temperature. I pulled parameters on voltage, and I ran it. You can see there's 13.6 coming out of the battery, 12.5 going back to the grid. And I ran it hard until I ran out of battery. So the cool thing was in the test, the temperature only went up about 5 to 6 degrees centigrade. And so I hit maybe 58 versus the EG4, which couldn't make it more than 45 minutes in my test. And people are saying that's abusive. I'm just saying I ran it below the rating. On the 15K, I'm running it above the rating, and it doesn't even get hot. So real world testing, folks. Okay, we're at an hour and a half running at 12.5 kilowatts off a battery only, just dumping that battery. So a nice constant load, 12.49. I should run it up to 13K and see what it does, but the spec sheet, of course, says 12K. So here's an hour and a half into it, just dumping my battery. I've dumped almost 50% of the battery out. Started at 100, run that 57%. Oh, and I forgot the most important part. At an hour and a half of running over the rated capacity of the machine, I am at 56.8 degrees Celsius. I went from 51 to 56. So apples to apples test. Though I didn't do a grid cell, and I definitely didn't hold this thing over 12 kilowatts that long. And again, the inverter can shut down whenever it wants. If it's beyond its spec, it'll shut down. It's not going to hurt anything. Just as a review, with this inverter, lugged battery cables, they were stripped and landed in the other inverter. You saw that. The MPPTs are more robust, 26 amps, and closed loop to the battery, no difference there. So
Again, they both work. I'm just telling you, for the money, this one works much better. And plus, if I can do 15 kilowatts on solar, how long did I run? I will run today, and it's like a heat index 110. I'm going to run all day on solar with this machine and produce full 15 kilowatt output for like 5-6 hours. Let's say 6 hours. That's 3 more kilowatts per hour than this machine can make ever. Okay, so what's that? That's 6 times 3, 18 to 20,000 watts more a day will this machine make. I can prove it because of what goes back to the grid. I don't waste a watt. So I have recordings of how much this machine makes. So on solar, this outperforms the 18 hands down. Now, a lot of you said the 18's antiquated, the 18 is obsolete. Well, I didn't know that. I've just been running this baby for 3 years. It has no problem. And I've run up to 6 of them. Got customers that have 9 of these, 12 of these parallel, no problem. This is all coming out of here. We're going to replace it with the Flex Boss because I've been obsoleted. Designed obsolescence, I guess, is the name of the game here. So we're going to go to EG4 batteries, EG4 inverters, Flex Boss, and a Grid Boss because I want to see how that thing works. My strategy has been whole house without any proprietary solar gear to do bypasses, to do backup power. We take the whole house off grid, and I have a lot of videos where we've done that. The next video you probably see might be that. But this is part 2 of the Sol-Ark 15K versus the EG4 18K-PV. Just, you got to price cost per watt. You know, the 417 versus the 408 per kilowatt hour, this beats it. Just in performance, just in reliability, not overheating. So, and that's just the way it is, folks. The facts are the facts. If you have any questions, comments, constructive criticism, I'm all ears. This is Engineer 775 signing out.